I'm finally back at the garage and resuming my work on this Lexus. There are two reasons why I took a small break. Well, first of all was that it's pretty cold, both outside and inside. It's around minus 10 degrees outside, and it's probably just about freezing point on the inside. And the second thing was that there is a lot of planning in regards to the whole, plumbing. I've had to look for an intercooler, for the piping, for the fuel system modifications, and a lot of things are out of stock and can only be ordered, which takes a couple of weeks, and some shops even close down for the holidays, so can't even order anything. So yeah, but now since the holidays are over, I've started working. And the first thing I've tackled was the turbo oil feeds. Now the 1GZ GTE turbos are fed using these banjo fittings. These bolt to the block of the 1GZ GTE engine. However, I don't have these ports on the block. And on the 1G GTE engines, the turbo feed lines are on the head. But of course, this 1GFE head does not have these ports for the turbo oil feed. So I had to be creative. So what me and the guys working at the local hydraulic shop thought that it was easiest is to use traditionally, as all of the other turbocharged Lexus guys use, a double banjo bolt with a feed coming from here, and then we have a line which goes to this T-joint, which splits the oil line to one turbo and to the second line. And all of this cost me 100 euros, which is quite expensive, but I really don't have any way out. And you might ask, like, how am I going to connect this with this? And the answer is I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut the pipe somewhere around here and then weld this part. Okay, please. So what I'm going to do is cut the pipe maybe around here somewhere and weld this part to there. Then I can connect everything and feed the turbos with oil. Hopefully my plan works out and I get the turbo feed finished, because I cannot start the engine and listen to the turbo spool without an oil feed and an oil return. I've just finished fabricating one of the turbo feeds. As you can see, the old line is now connected to the line that will come from the VVTi solenoid. And how I did that was, well, first of all, I had to cut the old banjo fitting, which is not used anymore. Then I had to weld this little piece, which provides sealing surfaces for the hose for the inner side of here. And before that, before welding, I had to add this piece like so it can actually press on the welded piece. And yeah, just weld around here. I don't know if the GoPro will focus on it, but yeah, it looks like that. Just a pro tip, I actually started welding it without proper cleaning of the surfaces, and these little parts had a very thick coat of zinc, which was very difficult to weld. And for this second time, I just used my PhD in chemistry and dissolved all of the zinc using sodium hydroxide, and now it should be pure steel here, no more zinc, and this should weld much easier than this side. And yeah, after I finished the turbo feeds on both sides, I will have to make something about the return lines, because they are also completely wrong. As you can see, I had to even cut this one because it could not fit in the engine bay. It would hit on the engine mount So yeah, and I guess I'll just use this old piece for the turbo return, just slightly re-modify it, clean it up, and it will probably work. It has quite a decent inner diameter, however it was modified at some point, and yeah, the hole is much smaller at this end than on this end. So what I did is I drilled the hole a bit larger, so my carburetor bore now fits in the hole, and I can make this hole to the original diameter, which is around this. Because for 2 turbos, I don't know if this will suffice, but this looks like the diameter is around the same as what I've seen on the stock twin turbo 1GZ GTE setup, so I think this should work. Finished welding both of the oil feed adapters, let's say, and so now the whole system is in place. So as traditional, I'll be feeding the turbos from the VVTi solenoid with the double banjo bolt. Then a line goes to a T. Oh, I don't know if you'll be able to see. Maybe let's go from the downside. So yeah, it tees off. One of the feeds goes to the front turbo, and the other one goes to the back. To the back turbo. I'll probably need to attach these hoses because they come close to other parts, and I don't want for them to rub through that easily. And now I need to think how to make the return. I think I'll need to cut the backside turbos all return in the middle here and clock it towards the front, because I think on the 1GZ the return is somewhere here, but of course there is an engine mount here that is in the way, so I'll need to route it over the engine mount. And the front turbo's return is much easier because you can see the return from the turbo is here, and this piece comes here, so it's like an S shape, maybe just a bend. And this is just a simple bend. Hopefully I can find a hose that is not cracked like I've got. But yeah, the rear turbo will be more difficult, but it's probably just, as I said, clocking and a straight pipe or a straight hose. So this is the old hoses of the twin turbo setup, and they're rock hard. And also, like, I think I had to cut them to get them off, because I said they completely are solid, and of course they don't fit to the current setup. That's why I bought this. So this is a 22mm inside diameter hose that will hopefully be flexible enough for me to use on my twin turbo setup. If not, then I don't know, I'll have to look for maybe some OEM hoses from different cars that had 22mm inside diameter. But hopefully this pipe will work, and I will not need to go on a big hunt for oil hoses. Got the turbo drains all tacked up. Now I only need to weld this all up, and then the turbo feed and turbo return lines will be finished. Welding the single return pipe took me around 16 minutes, and getting the angles right probably over an hour. The all feed and drain lines are finished, and because of that I want to try them to see if the fittings don't leak and if the return works actually. I mean, the return should work without problem. However, I found out that I actually don't have old gaskets for these, and I've ordered a new set of them, but They are pretty rare, and I'm not sure if they will arrive anytime soon. I mean, the order has not been cancelled, so they will probably arrive, but I don't know when. And I want to test these to see if it leaks, because if it leaks I need to redo it. And yeah, because of that the whole process stops. So I'm going to try to silicone them. I don't know if silicone copes well with pressure, but we'll see. And yeah, and test to see if the turbos spin. The turbo feed and return lines are now on with silicone, which I hope will last at least the test. And the next clip should be with the turbo spinning. I was a dum-dum yesterday. Even though I've siliconed on the oil feed and oil return lines on the turbos, I forgot to silicone on the turbo oil return back to the sump. So I'm going to do that today, but sadly no turbo spinning today. I thought I was smart by adding tape to the exhaust ports so things would not get into the head, into the engine. But now, since this tape was also compressed when I test fitted the manifold, and the tape does not come off right now. So pro tip, don't use the tape, or at least remove it when you're test fitting parts, because you'll just make yourself some more work. So another problem that I have with my turbo system is because the standard Toyota exhaust gaskets are these O-ring types that are recessed into the manifolds or the dump pipe. This means that I cannot buy gaskets for my flat pieces. I mean, I could in theory get these machined out so they also would have grooves, but for example for the dump pipe, the stock dump pipe is I think 2.5 inches, whereas I made it a 3-inch one. So once again, that would not work. That's when this comes in. So this is a piece of copper which I will cut out and make copper gaskets for these systems. And yeah, I've read that people have had success running copper gaskets, so I don't know why it shouldn't hold with my particular setup. So I'll need to mark them and cut them out. I've started to make the copper exhaust gaskets. So as you can see, I've started with drilling the holes, both for the bolt holes and for the center hole, because yeah, I need something to start off with. And I've almost finished the dump pipe flange gasket. So the holes are close, but still needs some adjustment. The center is cut, but also needs to clean up. I've cut the hole using this, but yeah, you need to buy like high tooth count blades for this kind of thin material, because I've used the one that came with the tool, and it was probably for wood, and it would just jam and try to bend the metal. I don't have a piece to show for you right now, but we just finished the copper gaskets. Well, they are not that finished. There is still some lips because I didn't get the holes in at the correct places, so everything shifted a bit, but that's not a problem. There's still plenty of copper left, so I'll just take some more material out of it, and I'll use the exhaust gases, which should paint the backside of this copper gasket where it is you know, sticking out, so that will be easy to fix later on. And yeah, I think I'm ready to put all of this back in. I hate myself sometimes. Remember I said that I apparently didn't have old oil feed and oil return gaskets? Well, I found them. They were actually between other parts of the turbos, wrapped in plastic, and so I didn't actually see them. But I do remember seeing them before, so nice one, me.
Now the preparations were done, and it was time to hear how the engine sounds with twin turbos. But there was a slight problem. The engine would not want to start. I've started changing things such as trigger settings, wiring, and etc., but to no avail. Finally, I gave up and decided to change over the spark control to the stock ECU. However, even then, the engine would not start even though I could see from the timing light that the spark signal was good, and I could smell fuel in the exhaust. That meant an only thing: there was not enough fuel. So a quick spray of some carb cleaner and it fired right up. The whole time the problem was too short pre-cranking injector pulse time and too little fuel while cranking. Having made these changes in the map, the engine now fires up every time and with ease.
I don't know if you'll be able to see from the camera, but there is oil dripping, which means that there is oil coming to the turbos and of course returning back. So that's great. I'll check over all of the fittings, see if any of those leak. I just checked all of the fittings and all of them are dry, but of course that is with a thick oil at probably quite a low pressure, but still I think if they would be leaking, they would leak immediately. So the turbos are spinning, and what's next? Well, there is a lot of plumbing that still needs to be done. As you can see, there is a lot of parts missing. They are here, but I need a lot of things like bolts, which didn't come with the turbo kit, some blanking hoses, other hoses, breathers, like the filter. Then of course I need to make all of the boost piping. My friends for my birthday gave this as a present, so I need to mount it and make the boost pipes. Then also I need to make the exhaust system, because currently now there is only the small stock pipe bolted to the dump pipe. However, I ran into issues. I went to the local exhaust shop and I've tried ordering some stainless parts, and they said that it was quite difficult. They didn't have pipe in stock and they didn't know if they can order new pipe at a reasonable price at a reasonable delivery date. So I'm not sure. Maybe I'll make a plain mild steel exhaust for now from the scraps that are laying around the garage, maybe a couple of parts that I'll need to buy, and you know, maybe for next season build a full stainless exhaust as I was planning. Oh, and also I need to modify the fuel system. So one thing is that I'm going to change the injectors. These are the stock, very small ones, and I'm going to change them to the 1ZZ, 1ZZFE injectors, and I'll have to do the return line mod, add a fuel return line, and yeah, fuel wise that's about it. And then I'll need to think of a better way to fit the Speeduino into the ECU box. I think I might try to print a spacer for this because there's a little bit of room in the engine bay, and the Speeduino might fit inside the enclosure. Oh, and also I'll need to do a quality of life modification. So the heater core lines come out straight into one of the turbo pipes, exactly to this side. So I will need to think about a way to make a very sharp 90 over there so that it doesn't interfere with the pipe and also goes to the heater lines from the block and the water pump.
That is all for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope the next video comes out faster.